Please, can I ask you to switch your mobile phones to silent? Apologies for absence. I've received apologies from Councillor Davies, Leroyd, Morgan, Quarterman, Ryder and Smith. Is there any more apologies, please?
Yes. I wonder if Deborah is actually coming. Sorry?
Councillor Kerr.
Right, this is advisory because I'm not sure if anybody's going to turn up after the event. But our absentees, and we apologise for them, are Councillors Powley, Smith, Fletcher, Evans and Davies.
Thank you, Councillor Kerr. Councillor Joy? Okay, thank you. Thank you, Councillor Richardson. Has any rules been broken, Councillor Kerr?
No, yes, I've broken a rule. Councillor Evans is here.
Thank you, Councillor Kerr. To receive declarations of interest, there is a green form that's been circulated around. If you fill that in, please. To confirm the accuracy of the minutes of the meeting held on the 25th of June, can I have a proposer and a seconder, please? Thank you, Councillor Massey. Thank you, Councillor Fairley. Does everybody agree? Thank you. Move. Members are asked to note the attendance matrix from the last meeting. To receive any announcements. I've had a really busy time since I came into office as Mayor, meeting so many different people. I seem to have visited a lot of care homes, but I have totally enjoyed my experience so far, and I am planning some charity events which I hope you will all support. In Dublin, just at the end of July, or should I say mid-month, we had a team from Redcar and Cleveland representing England. They came to my parlour and absolutely loved the whole experience, and they became 5th in the world champions out of over 11,500 competitors and 60 nations. So it's something that as a borough we should be advocating for, that dance is a sport. Are there any announcements from the leader? I know that he's late, but Councillor Richardson, I believe you have something.
Since we last met, we've had some events which highlight the very best of our borough. Armed Forces Day was once again marked with respect and enjoyment as the public turned out in force to pay tribute to current and former servicemen, women and their families. Our Armed Forces Day stands against any in the country, and I'm proud to say the crowds in Redcar provided a fitting tribute to all those who have served their country with distinction. We also had the return of the Festival of Thrift to Kirkleatham. The event once again provided imaginative entertainment to our residents and people who travelled into our borough to enjoy the weekend. It provided a great showcase for what we have to offer, and I look forward to it growing in popularity in the years to come. We hosted the first dessert festival earlier this month. The two-day event celebrated all things sweet and brought together dessert producers, live demonstrations, family activities and entertainment to kick off the start of the summer holidays. We now look forward to the return of Between the Tides Festival next month, where more fantastic family entertainment will be on offer. It was great to see the return of the refurbished carriages to the Saltburn Cliff tramway, and they will soon be operational again. A tramway which has been running for more than 140 years needs great care and attention, but we are proud of such a fantastic attraction, and pleased the next step of refurbishment is complete. Taking care of the tramway will ensure it continue to run for many years to come. My congratulations go to Kirkleatham Hall School, which has been awarded the prestigious Platinum School Games mark for its exceptional commitment to physical activity, sport and inclusion. Achieving the platinum level is a significant milestone and reflects the dedication of the staff, pupils and the wider school community, and I would like to thank those who have been involved in reaching such a high level of achievement. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Richardson. Are there any announcements from the Cabinet members? Councillor Southers?
Hi. There are lots of developments in children's services, especially at the moment. I rarely get the opportunity to discuss them here. There's lots of questions to Cabinet members every council meeting. I've only ever had one myself. Lisa hasn't had any, I don't think, have you? So our portfolios account for 80% of the authority's revenue, so come on, ask us more questions, please. With many fantastic officers in children's, and I was pleased last week to have one of them name-checked at Corporate Parenting Board by the NHS representative as a purveyor of best practice. And that sort of thing's becoming the norm. You'll be aware of the recent Ofsted Good rating, a first for Redcar and Cleveland. But the thing I want to announce today is something I think is important that could perhaps have otherwise passed you by or be missed. It relates to a meeting earlier this month of the Early Years Partnership. It's an initiative being driven by another of our great officers. It's a multi-agency group, the type of cooperation that's advocated by central government these days. And I thought a measure of a success in organising this, when I got there were no spare seats and I had to go and find one. Anyway, at that meeting, I was pleased to hear that one key metric is moving in the right direction. I thought you should all know about it. It's the GLD, Good Level of Development, an assessment of the progress of our children by the end of their reception year at school, when they're about 4 or 5 years old. I mean, it's a fundamental thing, this, the GLD, because children who do not meet the GLD find it really difficult to catch up. They perform less well in future in a whole range of respects. In 2024-5, that's the previous year, our GLD was 67.8%. The government set as a target, everybody targets in 2028, which everyone thinks is ambitious, very ambitious for us, and ours is 75.9%. So the news is, it's fantastic to hear that last year, the GLD for 25-6 was 70.3%. Great news. It's the first time that we've had a GLD over 70%. I think it's something to celebrate. It's a key measure, a key metric, enhancing the foundations for our community's future. So that should be a key aim for us in this chamber. Perhaps one of our number one aim, preparing the future of our communities. So it's an achievement for us all to share and celebrate. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Southers. Is there any announcements from the Chief Exec?
On behalf of the Chief Exec, no, Madam, no.
There has been no questions of the public received. So we then move on to the reports. The first report being the financial report. Councillor Massey.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Members might be thinking, why is this report in front of you today? Because usually the financial report, the outturn report, does not come to full council. And it's because there are two specific issues within the report that require full council approval. So I'll talk about three things in terms of the report. The first one is the general economic position of the council, which is not something that usually comes for approval at full council, but is here because it's part of the overall report. So you will note that there has been a year-end overspend of 2.4 million, which obviously is large, but is much smaller than the 5.3 million that was being reported as the potential overspend at Q3. I think this speaks to the really strong work of our financial services team, but also across the council in terms of budget management. We know the issues behind this. I'm not going to go into them in any great depth because I think members in any local authority similar to ours know about children in care, the costs of children in care, and also the council's moral and ethical responsibility to look after those children as corporate parents. In terms of the reason this is in front of full council today, there are two decisions that require full council approval. So the first one is an additional £3.5 million worth of borrowing. I know this sounds quite a lot, but let me explain what that's actually for. And it's for a new finance, HR, procurement and payroll system. So in essence, we currently have a contract for those services that is due to expire in 2027. And because it takes a lot of lead-in time in order to change contracts potentially, or even if we stayed with the same company, to change systems because the current system is end of life, we've brought this as early as possible to give officers a 12-month lead-in period before any change has to be made to our back office procedures. In essence, the current system is end of life. It's barely used in any local authority currently, and we would have to transition to a new system even if it was with the same provider. Members who've looked at the report, which is in the cabinet papers, will see that there are three options that have been considered, and the lowest cost option is option 3, and that is the £3.5 million over the course of the next 10 years. Effectively, these are capital costs up front in order to ensure that these systems work. I think it's a positive thing for members. The new system will be much more proactive and also enable us as members to dig more deeply into things that I know that members in this chamber care about, things such as Councillor Thompson brings up appraisals at a regular juncture at scrutiny committees, and rightly so. This system will make it much easier to track that. In terms of sickness absence, I know that Councillor Kerr regularly mentions this in council meetings and at scrutiny meetings. This will make it much easier to track. It's a much more up-to-date, modern system that does not require the knowledge of one officer in our authority in order to work it. It's something that we can get training from across the officer corps, and we think it's the right choice, full stop. We have looked at the current contract, looked at the current company, but we believe that the option 3, which is actually a different company, is the best deal for this council, as you can see in the cabinet reports. The third item, which is the second item that requires formal full council approval, is around the continued use of second home premiums and long-term empty property premiums. Members who've been here a little while will recall we've previously made this decision, but the council, following advice, has been asked, and we are now asking full council to reinforce or re-endorse that decision because of a number of challenges that have occurred around the United Kingdom. We think this has been a real positive since it was introduced. The council has made money off this, and we know that we're in a financially difficult position. So we've made £900,000 due to these extra premiums. But more crucially than that, I think what we've seen are houses that were off the market come back on the market. Empty homes have been turned into real homes, which I think is a positive. And also we've seen the number of second homes in the borough actually decrease. So again, that's bringing more property on the market for residents in Redcar and Cleveland to enjoy and live full and healthy, hopefully, lives here. So in essence, the report is here for questions. I'm happy to try and answer them. The financial stuff usually doesn't come here, but I'm happy to answer any questions on it. The two particular items that we're being asked for decision about are the new contract for HR, payroll, procurement, etc., number 1, and number 2, the continued use of our council tax, second home premiums and long-term empty property premiums. So I'll move the report and invite questions. I think Councillor Brown is going to second. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Brown, for seconding. Does anyone wish to speak? I have Councillor Nightingale.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you very much, Councillor Massey, for that report. And of course, as far as the decision making is concerned, I don't think the Liberal Democrats are going to oppose what you're proposing. But the main focus of this report is the financial position last year of the council. Probably don't really need to ask you the question, but I think we should be concerned about the continuing overspends, £7 million in children's services and 1.7 in adults, and the fall in reserves, the increasing borrowing. These are significant. We will agree, I'm sure, that these are significant issues. Secondly, I think it's important to welcome the use of in-house social care that you're proposing. But I think there should be concern about the use of vacancies to ensure that there are underspends in some of the areas of the council. At the Governance Committee last week, the accounts for last year were actually, the draft accounts were actually presented. And one significant feature was that illustrates the financial issues of this council, and I'm sure you would, Councillor Massey would agree with this. The current asset ratio is just less than 0.6. It should be 1 or 1.5. That means that the current liabilities that have to be paid within the next 3 months are near enough, well, I'll give you the actual figure, it's 11,975. And the assets to cover that are 6,7,177. So this is quite a significant situation. The answer I was given was that this is all about timing, but it does illustrate the financial situation that this council has been in. So let's move to the blame. I'm sure that Councillor Massey will agree. Will you agree with me that the blame really is, and it's shown in the accounts, over the years, long term, the rate support grant of this council has been going down. It's in the accounts, somewhere around about page 93. Rate support grant has been going down, expenditure has been going down, and council tax has been going up. This is a long-term trend that has been inherited from, let's face it, the Conservative government, and we hope that the current government is going to do something more than just give the council the power to borrow £18.4 million. Would you agree with me that the financial situation needs to be addressed and the current government really does need to get its finger out to do it urgently?
Councillor Nightingale. Councillor Kerr.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Massey, as always, for your report. I have a very specific question which I asked at Resources Committee, but unfortunately there wasn't a cabinet member there to answer. I mean, that's not a criticism, so I'm bringing it here. And it's about the tagging of contaminated bins. Now, in your report, you say that this policy was saving us money. Now, it was a policy decision that was reversed very abruptly. Now, considering the financial predicament of the council, I am surprised that we would forego those savings, because surely no saving is too small. Now, in addition to that, further on in the report, we learn that we have spent £186,000 to promote recycling. So surely we have two policies there completely at odds. So maybe you could offer some insight into all of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kerr. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thanks to the Cabinet Member for presenting the report, and one notes the caveats that are expressed in doing so. The overspend was smaller than predicted, and I think we're all grateful for that. But the 2.4 million overspend still resulted in a reduction in reserves. It still resulted in a reduction in service provision. It still resulted in a failure to employ in vacancies that are vital for the delivery of services. So whilst there is credit for reducing the Q3 forecast reduction, there is little credit, is there, for continuing to overspend as an authority to the degree that we have. Now, I do understand the constraints that Cabinet members feel that they are under because of the almost inevitability of the outside pressures over which internal controls seem to have little effect. But the net effect is that we are not delivering services to the degree that we should be. The net effect is that we're reducing reserves when we should be building them. Now, my concern is particularly that we are now entering the 5th month of this financial year, and I certainly, as an elected member, have no idea where we stand in terms of our spend against forecast budget. So I would hope that, having delivered this outturn for the year end, that as soon as you get the opportunity, hopefully tomorrow, members can be updated as to where we are in relation to our current year capital spend, our current year revenue spend, our current year revenue income, and also where we sit in terms of reserve position. I think that would be very helpful. So having asked for that, I'm sure you will consider delivering it. And I note the comments that you've made in terms of year end. I'm sure Chamber will also note them.
Does anyone else wish to speak? If not, Councillor Massey, would you like to sum up, please?
Yes, thank you. Thank you for the leading questions, Councillor Nightingale, but I do agree with most of what you said. I think that, in essence, this ties in some of your comments with Councillor Thompson's questions, in fact, which, of course, I'm concerned, I'm sure other members are concerned that the council is continuing to overspend, but I would be more concerned if every other council wasn't doing the same thing. So, in essence, the Local Government Association says that the deficit in local government will reach £8 billion by 28-29. So it's not just us, this is a national problem. The county councils, I know we're not a county council, but recently their treasurers surveyed in a report, there were 41 of them, and all 41 of them said they had a budget deficit. So again, it's not just us, it's across the piece. And I do think that the reason that we're in such financial problem, or we have so many financial problems, is twofold. One is that social care has ballooned in terms of cost, but also in terms of volume, and I do hope that the new Prime Minister seems to be moving in the direction of trying to solve that, maybe on the lines of a national care service. They're the most positive outcomes that have been heard for a while, and the fact that the Prime Minister is meeting with the leader of the opposition and the leader of the Liberal Democrats, I think is a real positive in that particular area. In essence, I think the problem that we've got is what we can do locally is quite limited, so in essence what we've tried to do in here is implement spend controls, and as you can see, they've had an impact. They've reduced the deficit exponentially, but it's still there, and I think that's a real problem. In terms of the general points, the second part of Councillor Nightingale's question, I agree that the reason that the council's in this position is because the council has had its grant taken away from it over the course of the last 15 years. I first got elected in 2011, and the revenue support grant was a significant part of this council's budget. It no longer exists pretty much in any real form. In essence, the burden has been shifted onto local council taxpayers. The challenge is that areas like ours have high council tax. Relatively speaking, it's not the highest in the country, it's nowhere near, but it is relatively high compared to the south of the country, particularly places like, let's say, Westminster or something that have large business rates. So the big challenge is for national government to try and fix this problem. What we have to do locally is effectively keep the lights on and keep the services going that our residents need and value. In terms of moving forward in Councillor Kerr's questions, apologies, as I know this was not meant at me, Councillor Kerr, it's not the way whatsoever that you operate, I am aware of that, don't worry, but I would like to defend my attendance record and hold it up against anybody's. I was on holiday, unfortunately, on the particular day in question. But in terms of recycling and tagging, I think these were intended to be pilots, they were pilots, and the service areas have reviewed those pilots and the data. It did seem to be quite positive, but it was only in particular areas. It's certainly something that can be revisited potentially in the future, but the decision that was reached, it was not reached by myself, it's not in my portfolio, was to pause those tagging campaigns and potentially go towards more of an educational outlook, which is the money that you referenced in terms of education, in terms of recycling. But certainly I'm sure that Councillor Bendelo and others would be more than happy to take another look at those kind of policies as we go forward, but the decision that's been reached today has been to pause that. It was only effectively a pilot. I just want to return to Councillor Thompson's question. It is impossible to write a report every day of the year effectively for the council's finances, but I think Councillor Thompson hopefully will be pleased to hear that at the next cabinet meeting, which means the next scrutiny meeting takes place before it, which means the week before that are the papers, the Q1 position will be reported to that committee. So we won't have to wait too long. Obviously we do have our strange August recess period, but we will be able to tackle this year's financial data hopefully within the next month or so. So thanks for the questions. I've moved the report and invite members to vote, please.
Thank you, Councillor Massey. Can we all agree the report? Agreed, thank you. Moving on to the Children's and Families report, Councillor Bill Suthers.
Right. This report used to come to council every 2 months, I felt it was a bit repetitive. So in discussions with the DCS, that's the Director of Children's Services, Danielle, we decided to bring it annually. At Scrutiny Committee last week, it was felt that that was not often enough, and on reflection I agree. Our role as corporate parents is perhaps the most important thing we do as councillors. So as a result, I'm advised that the report one time came every month. Anyway, John and I have had a chat about this, and in future we plan to bring a large detail report like this one annually, but provide shorter quarterly updates the other three times per year. And that fits with the data collection, which is quarterly. I hope that satisfies most members. It's a kind of compromise. Anyway, as far as this report's concerned, the welfare of our children needs to be a central priority. In everything we do as a local authority. And given the importance of children in our care and members' responsibility in that regard, I hope you've all managed to read the report in detail. So I'm going to quickly highlight some parts and take notes on the subsequent debate. Remember, it's not questions and answers, although I'll try to address any issues raised. And we've got John making furious notes over there from any points, and we'll circulate those answers later. Our front door, we call the MACH, M-A-C-H, Multi-Agency Children's Hub. It's based at Daisy Lane in Ormsby. They've dealt with 14,000 contacts per year, 14,000. Yes, almost 300 every week. There are mainly referrals that come from the police or health or schools. And if you haven't visited the match, I'm sure that Charlotte would welcome you popping along at some point, but please give her a call first. Perhaps we should organise some visits there. I want to start looking at the report on a positive note. You'll know that the ILACs, that's Inspection of Local Authority Social Care, visit between the 1st and 12th of December. I think I've broadcast it enough that we were assessed as good overall. It's, I mean, that result, and the earlier, they call it a JTI inspection. It means Joint Targeted Area Inspection. It's a multi-agency inspection. It's also good. These reflect the incredible work from our officers and build on the recommendations from the 2022 inspection. There's a direct quote from the inspectors in the report, which notes that there's one area which requires improvement, primarily because we're unable to locate sufficient regulated placements for our children. 433 children in our care at the moment. We simply don't have enough foster carers, so that would be, if you could promote foster caring whenever you can, that would be helpful. We've got the reforms. There are lots of new regulations. Josh McAllister, the minister, has been kept in place by Andy Burnham. He's really driven on this, and we've got the most reforms in children's care for almost 40 years. They're based on prevention, integration of services through cooperation, our new cooperative Prime Minister, of course, and family support. We try to place children with family or friends when they can't live with their parents. Where possible, we do that. We've got a best start in life strategy and a healthy baby strategy, which focus on the first 1,001 days, supported by the family hubs. And there, the family hubs role is expanding. There's going to be a regional foster care cooperative, and that's through expanding the existing Fostering with North East. And funding's been announced for this, and reorganisation in this regard's underway. Our DCS, Danielle, is the chair of the implementation group. So hopefully we will get a fair say in that. Hopefully all the reforms will lead to a more integrated service based on multi-agency cooperation. That's what we hope anyway. So that's the reforms. Social workers. There's a national shortage of social workers. So many of you will be aware of another of our operations, the Academy at the South Bank Business Centre, to train our own, also worth a visit. I don't know if you met our social workers en masse at one of the practice weeks perhaps. Normally they held at Inspire to Learn in Normanby, next to the award-winning swimming baths, for those of you that know. It's where our education team is based, also worth a visit. If you go to meet the social workers, it's quite scary meeting them all at once, upwards of 200 of them. But the Academy, to train our own, has been a massive success in employing and retaining staff. Although Middlesbrough's poached our Mandy earlier this year. So we have a new principal social worker, our own Emma, and a great team there. Worth another place worth a visit. On page 8 of the report is more detail on contacts and referrals to the match, multi-agency Children's Hub. It notes that 14% of those referrals, 14% of those contacts, turn into referrals. So that, if you're good at maths, you'll work out that's 2,000 of the 14,000 cases require further support from us. Big workload. This is an increase from 1,500 2 years ago. It's all in the report there. There's a table on page 12 which shows the ages of the children and the locations. Almost 11% of all children in the West and nearly 7% in the other two, in the rest of the authority, are assessed by a social worker. It's a large proportion of children, isn't it? It's not dissimilar to other Teesside authorities, but it's a lot of children, isn't it? Dealing with all these assessments in a timely manner is a tough and important task. The table on page 13 identifies the main causes. And they're the usual suspects: alcohol, drugs, domestic abuse. I think the standout for me in that table is the mental health issue. Mental health of a parent in 46% of the cases, and mental health of the child in 25%. How do we begin to address this? I haven't got the answers to this, but I can see the issue. Note on page 15, there are 51 unborn babies who were subject to strategy meetings. 51 unborn babies. How sad is that? It's a real concern, isn't it? The last strategy we want to adopt is to take a baby into care. But we have to assess the level of protection required.
1 minute
What can we do
remaining,
to prevent
Councillor
this?
Southers.
All right, I'm almost onto my last sheet. Bottom of page 22, at the end of 25/6, there were 443 children in our care compared to 419 the previous year. This is 161 per 10,000 population. That's compared to 101 for our statistical neighbours and 67 nationally. So it's very high. The main reasons: drugs and domestic abuse, page 24. The total children in care at the moment is 433, but there's been an upward trend over the last decade, reflecting of the hollowing out of our communities, and we all know where to attach the blame for that. On page 26 are some examples of children coming into care to provide some context. On page 27 shows almost half the children are placed with a relative and friend. That's the second best option rather than staying at home. We need to provide children who've suffered trauma with a stable placement, a stable life, close to their roots, increased stability, less moving around placements, is an important measure of success. Ensuring our children leave care successfully is crucial. The reasons for leaving care are outlined in the tables on page 28. Helping children to leave care and become adults is also challenging. We've opened the Target Hub just across the road there last year to support these young adults.
Need to wind
Ideally,
up now, Councillor Suthers.
well, I've only got a little bit. I'll nearly finish. It's hard moving into adulthood for any child, but more so if you're moving out of care. And the Target team do a great job in that regard. Some of the financials are on page 31. They don't make pleasant reading, but we're trying to act proactively through our children's hubs to help families, and reactively in our care home strategy, which is also outlined there. I think these reforms should help eventually to give positive financial outcomes. The chaos in children's services is down to the design of the free market evangelists, I think. And anyway, to reiterate, children is one of our major businesses. Our directorate's got significant operations in Southbank, Normanby, Ormsby and Redcar, and 9 family hubs and several youth centres. So I welcome any comments. John's taking notes, and I've rushed right through the last few paragraphs so that the mayor didn't shut me up entirely. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Councillor Suthers. Can I have someone to move and second the report, please? Councillor Suthers moved, Councillor Brown second. Thank you. Councillor Kerr.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor. And thank you, Councillor Suthers, for your detailed report. The team is certainly doing great things. And I hope that you will agree that we work in a cross-party way to support, what the team does. I just have a couple of comments. In Councillor Massey's report, we saw that the transformation savings that we achieved were 1.1 million in terms of developing in-house placements. That left 1.8 million not achieved last year. So I would like to ask you how confident you are that these savings will be realised. And my second point, which you have touched on, I was looking at the causes of children coming into care, and I feel that perhaps, and this is for scrutiny really rather than for you to answer today, we should consider how we can move further upstream, perhaps to reach people while they are waving and not drowning. So in terms of addiction and domestic violence, how can we move further upstream, perhaps working with our partners to tackle the causes of those children coming into our care? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kerr. Councillor Hannaway.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Suthers. I noticed there isn't a section on safeguarding in schools, and obviously that's an important issue as regards our looked after children. So does that mean that that information, which is, I noticed there was an article in the Northern Echo that says our schools are continuing to be the most disrupted in the country with the highest suspensions, etc. So will that information be in a separate annual education report that you're going to do? Thank you.
Is there any more to speak on this report? If not, Councillor Suthers to sum up, please.
Okay, yeah. Well, thanks very much for your questions. Yeah, we do. The finances are quite a mess, aren't they? Like everywhere. I think my learned friend here was mentioning that it's a problem everywhere. We can get a detailed answer to you. I mean, this is not a question and answer, it's a debate, so we'll get back to you about that. Moving upstream, there are more things going on in the family hubs. We'll get some details about that as well. Safeguarding in schools, I'm not quite sure where it comes, but John's making notes and we'll get back to you on that as well. It's not a question and answer, it's a debate, so I've not got given you direct answers. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Suthers. Can we all agree the report? Moved. Thank you. We'll move on to agenda item 9. It's to receive reports from the Cabinet member, and this one is from Climate and Culture. It is a question and answer session. Councillor Richardson.
Thank you. I'll take the report as read, and of course I'm happy to take any questions and will do my very best to answer them. But before I do that, I'd like to take the opportunity to thank the departments I've had the pleasure of representing over the last 3 and a bit years for all their hard work. Firstly, Chris and his whole libraries team. Following cuts to the service, they've essentially had to manage the council's front of house while waiting for a new library to be built. I really appreciate the extra pressure it's put on the staff, and I also have to mention their social media. It genuinely has me laughing out loud, and I wouldn't be surprised if they won some influencer awards, because they really are brilliant. Lisa, Lizzie and Caroline in the climate change team, their innovative projects for finding, every available space has a solar panel on it, saving us huge amounts of emissions as well as money, and some of the technical projects they explained to me still leave me speechless and confused. But I really do think they deserve a medal for the innovation they bring to this council. Naomi and the countryside team amaze me with all the detailed work they do to encourage and monitor wildlife. The effort they put into securing grants to carry out this vital habitat work is invaluable. Sarah for overseeing our following culture and tourism events teams, thank you. Joe and the museums team deserve huge credit for the improvements they've made to the service, putting together thoughtful, engaging and relatable exhibitions, and it's been my pleasure to attend so many of them, and let's not forget my favourite, It's a Dog's Life. To Steph and the tourism team, I thank you for promoting our beautiful borough, as well as looking after the not so simple task of Saltburn Cliff Lift since they took it over, and organising a taste of Redcar, which is no easy feat and has grown year after year. To Lisa and Holly in the event and the whole of the events team, what can I say? They've knocked it out of the park again with the Kite Festival, newly introduced Sunset Markets, a brand new dessert festival, and all the grant funding they secure to make sure these events happen. The heat maps that were shown really do show their commitment to taking events and outreach work right across the borough, and ensuring every community has the opportunity to get involved. We also had Between the Tides winning the North East Culture Award for the best event in 2025, which was thoroughly deserved. I'd like to thank our communications, highways and environments team as well, because their support to delivering in all these events is absolutely invaluable. Our visitor numbers speak for themselves with a recent 10% increase. I noticed TVCA trying to take all the credit in the press without mentioning our teams whatsoever. Cheeky. And it would be remiss of me not to say a huge thank you to our volunteers across every service. I can't mention them all individually, but whether you're one of our countryside volunteers, litter pickers, museum or festival volunteers, we couldn't do it without you. And lastly, thanks to Chris, who oversees all of this while supporting every one of the teams to do what they do best and supporting all my questions. From managing asset sales and property issues, for dealing with everything from toilet barriers to water fountain testing on top of his day-to-day responsibilities. He is there for me to lean on whenever something's gone wrong. We are by no means in the funding position that any of these departments would like to be in, but every one of them is incredibly resourceful and, in my opinion, punching well above its weight. I'd like to thank this administration for the small investment we were able to make in the events team this year. That has allowed us, I'd like to see it be bigger. If you want to commit today to more money, we'll take it. Go on. Allowed us to expand what we offer, bring back the Festival of Thrift, which welcomed 35,000 visitors last month. Bringing visitors into this borough is so important, and we are and must continue to be a tourist destination. I sincerely hope we can continue to invest and grow that offer in the years ahead. It's been an honour to represent these teams where I can, and I genuinely thank every one of them for everything they do to improve, protect and showcase this wonderful borough. And lastly, to give you all a task while I'm stood up here, the carbon literacy training mentioned in my report will be offered to all councillors in September. It's an accredited independent course delivered over 2 sessions by an independent trainer, and Gemma is making sure there's public interest in which councillors turn up and which councillors don't. So it'd be really great to see people sign up and turn up to that if they can. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Richardson. The first question is from Councillor Nightingale.
Thank you very much, Councillor Richardson, for your report. May I refer to, I think it's page 76, round about 8.6. I think it's absolutely terrific. Wizard, in fact, that there is solar installation taking place. But I've got 2 questions for you here. In 8.6, it mentions the Ormsby Library and Community Hub having a solar installation. But all day, whatever the weather, whatever the season, the lights are on all day, which rather contradicts the idea of conserving electricity. Which leads to my second point. It doesn't, I don't think it mentions anywhere in the report that there is a possibility for exporting electricity generated by solar panels into the national grid. Has that actually been explored, and does it happen?
Thank you, Councillor Richardson.
I will ask why the lights are left on all day. I know we have a person specifically in charge in buildings and efficiency, and he goes around making improvements, so I'll certainly look into that. I think there is, but bigger than that, what they have is a lot of battery powered, so they collect it and use it when they don't have any. So a lot of these installations are backed up with battery power systems, which is cheaper than selling it back to the grid and then using theirs when you run out. So thank you.
Councillor Hart.
Thank you, Councillor Richardson. What a brilliant report. I've just got a few things to go through. Gisborough is undoubtedly one of the true jewels in Redcar and Cleveland's crown. However, while areas like Redcar and Saltburn continue to receive strong direct investment and council support for major events, Gisborough and East Cleveland are increasingly left to be self-sufficient, forced to source their own funding and organise their own initiatives, just to boost their local footfall and support their local economy. Currently, Gisborough is working hard to host a major community event, and two groups which haven't been mentioned in your thanks, I'd like to personally thank, and that is the regeneration team and the town centre management team, because without those two, we would not have been able to move forward. And they've given us over and above what should be expected of them as employees by Redcar and Cleveland Council to ensure that we get this across the mark. And again, you know, we feel pretty let down really, as a borough, as a town, that we don't get that backup. So with that in mind, if we look at paragraph 4.8 of the report, which claims Gisborough gained 42.92 million from visitors last year, if you talk to shopkeepers and on Westgate off Chalmers Street, footfall is noticeably down and local trade is struggling. The official figures come from a computer estimate that counts things like hotels, you know, people staying in hotels around the area, and price inflation, rather than counting actual shoppers walking down the street and shopping. So, you know, could we explain if we are looking at a deeper delve than using Steam to get some accurate information? Has the council carried out any real footfall counts and surveyed local traders about their actual sales to match the reality on the ground? Lastly, could you please clarify the figure that over 300 participants in paragraph 5.17, which looks to be inflated by about 300% compared to the actual parade marchers, entertainment and event management team when we talk about Gisborough events, and explain where we got those figures from. Thank you, Carrie.
Councillor Richardson.
Hi. In terms of events in Gisborough, they are really struggling for spaces on which to put events. Whether that be, we don't own the land that we own in some other areas to put on a festival like we do at Kirkleatham, and we don't have a pedestrianised high street. So that throws in a lot of difficulties in terms of putting on an event. If you're having an event and you haven't been supported by the events team, come to me and send me an email, tell me the details and what you want, and we will ensure that you get support. We have events put on, you know, all over the borough by community organisations, and they support everybody where they can. Thanks to the team that are already offering you help in the town deal and the regen team. I don't oversee them, so I'm not usually involved in what they do. In terms of surveying high streets, that is not within the events team. We have people at events counting numbers and looking at how many people have turned up and surveying what they've spent and where they've been. We don't have, certainly the events team are not measuring activity on the high streets on a day-to-day basis. And in terms of the switch on, you want to know if there was exactly 300 participants of, right. Okay, I can only take that up with the events team and ask why they've come to that figure. That's fine with me. Yeah.
Appreciate that. The main question within all that is it's okay us using things like Steam to gather data, but if that data isn't accurate, it's a waste of our time.
I was going to say, I think Councillor Hart, Councillor Richardson did answer that question in that she'll look into that further.
We do have people at actual events like the Kite Festival there doing their best with clickers and iPads asking people about their experience and things, yeah, but Steam is the general overseeing measurement. But I have about 5 members of staff, so, you know. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Richardson. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My first inquiry really relates to are we going to be entering our library team for the BAFTA Awards next year? And my second question relates to are we as a local authority paying their equity fees? Management of the infrastructure and all of the matters that you have referred to clearly demands a great deal of attention, and no one, I'm sure, would welcome the vast range of responsibility that as a cabinet member you obviously have, and looking at the detail, that clearly is a very comprehensive portfolio. We could discuss many aspects, and no doubt at scrutiny we will do. But there are some points that I would just like to refer to. The infrastructure provision that the local authority provides does not reflect the demands put upon it by the vast numbers of tourism persons that the figures demonstrate, reflecting the amount of work we've been putting in. So 2.25 million visitors coming to Saltburn, for example. We are not providing the infrastructure to accommodate both visitor need and resident support. We have been advised that our budgets this year from neighbourhood have no latitude in them because of the severe financial constraints that as an authority we are suffering from. We really need to re-examine how we work as an authority. We really need to look at what we are doing in terms of service provision and how we manage it. We've spoken on several occasions about the appointment of a foreshore manager at Saltburn to look after the foreshore area and all of the valleys that appertain to tourism provision. And we have agreed that there is not enough resource to provide a separate appointment, but we will look to try and manage better how we provide coverage. So I would ask that we revisit how we actually operate as an authority. You've mentioned access and the amount of footpath mileage, which is enormous, and it's a wonderful asset that we have. And with the very small core of countryside team that we are able to employ, it is miraculous that the standards are as they are. So I echo your endorsement of their efforts. But in forward planning, we need to devote more resources.
Councillor Thompson, have you got a question in there, please?
We need to devote more resources. So my question in that respect is, what are we doing about budget reappraisal? And what are we doing also in respect of developing our new website, which I understand will be published next year, in consulting with members about its content? Because it is really important that we should be promoting our assets. So I would ask, what are we doing to better promote the walking opportunities in the borough? What are we doing to better promote the Cleveland Way, the Langbath Loop, and all of the opportunities for visitors? My last question really relates to
I was going to say, can you wrap up, please, Councillor Thompson?
My last question relates to the cliff lift. Now, I know that the small team that have been responsible for maintaining and delivering the refurbishment of this asset have struggled. And the timeline that we've been given as ward members, we've been struggling with as well to support the work that you are doing. It would be really helpful if, my last point, members could have a copy of the Gantt system to show the Gantt chart progress and where we have fallen down, without being critical, but so we can learn from the progress that would allow us to improve on in the future.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Councillor Richardson.
I think they're operational questions that require a detailed explanation that could have come from the teams that operate in their day-to-day work and do that. I can't stand here and tell you every delay that's gone on with the cliff lift. We know what's happened with the testing this week. We know why it hasn't gone ahead and it will be next week. And we know that they don't want to give out timelines and then be late because they're heavily criticised. They just want to work as fast as possible. They're doing everything they can to promote everything they can. They're a very, very small team with limited resources. I think what you're suggesting is that I sit in there like a manager and oversee everything they do, which makes me their manager and that my full-time job, and criticise them if they're not doing everything we want them to do, but they're doing other things. And you've just got to ask the people that do the job. Why, where exactly are they promoting walking routes? I don't know. Exactly what's going on the new website, we need to talk to the team that are doing that, and that's not my team. But I do think those questions are far too operational for a full council meeting.
Thank you, Councillor Richards. Councillor Joy.
Thank you. It's Councillor Richards. Really pleased to see this report, and I totally echo what you've said about all of the teams. I feel like, as Councillor Thompson also said, I think the social media work that's been going on by the library staff, I went a bit fangirl when I went in there, so I'm hoping everyone has that experience. I think it's brilliant because it just shows that you can communicate a message really cheaply and really fast, and I think that's what we need to be doing, because I feel like this report is quite top line, and there was things in it that I would have liked to have seen more of, but I don't know whether that's because I'm a geek or because I think a lot of the time we tend to keep those things to ourselves. And I know we've spoken about, for example, Eston Pool and how amazing the energy saving is there, but I feel like we know it, but the public need to know it, and our residents need to know it, and our businesses need to know it. So I feel like part of the report I would have liked to have seen was a bit about the comms, because I think that the comms is so key to get the outreach for people, because hopefully no one's going to look at this video. That would be intensely dull, and read the minutes, but it's, you know, the social media or just the press releases. So I think more of that would have been good to see. So I wonder whether that's something that you can work on. And I think to that end as well, what I was looking for was, how does the climate strategy in particular cross over things like countryside management strategy into Neil's portfolio, which is obviously the operational side of, you know, the grass cutting, and I'm interested to know where those dovetail. How do you work between you to coordinate that? Because I think one of the things I get asked about from residents is, why are the council either not cutting my area or cutting it too much or spraying it? And I think if we have a strategy to underpin where we're going to do things, in what order and why, which touches on climate and biodiversity, but also looks at, you know, operational, let's, you know, decide where we're going to cut and when. I think I would like some information about that. So is that something that you can elaborate on, or tell me about how you work together? And I think just the bit about the visitor numbers as well, I think it's amazing what we've been doing in Gisborough. And to Councillor Hart's point, the regen team, I appreciate that's not part of your portfolio, so obviously we're not talking about regen and growth because it's your portfolio. So what I did want to say was, the work that's been done on the visitor centre, obviously there's a lot from regen, but there's a lot of the countryside team being involved, and I think that that's been a massively brilliant piece of work. I think some of the gaps though are where we lack funding, and obviously one of the pitfalls is having such a I've said before, small and mighty team. They are incredible, but they can't do everything, and some of the funding gaps mean that, for example, we've got a spanking new visitor centre. It looks amazing. They do an amazing scone, by the way, if you're visiting. Huge. And but the bike wash is broken, and we need funding to do that, and it's, you know, in the process of being applied for. It's about £6,000. So it's those tiny small gaps that the public go, oh, this is lovely, oh, but this isn't complete. So I think there's a few gaps where we could maybe refine. So it's just whether more capability for resource for staff would be looked at, or am I asking for the impossible? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Joy. Councillor Richards.
I'd love to have more resource, but we don't. In terms of comms, absolutely, I've questioned it myself and said it should have a feature in the magazine. I think people think climate change is boring, and I think but then you get so many questions from people really wanting to know that detail. So I do think we don't put enough of it out there, or shout enough about what that team do. And you are right, it is in detail stuff that you wouldn't necessarily even ask about or come across. You know, I won't go into some of it, but like the way that they filter the water in the new pool means it doesn't get dumped in big amounts, so it doesn't cool down, so it doesn't need reheating and all that kind of thing. Really clever stuff. So I've asked them to, and I've asked comms to, I've asked both sides to give them more, feed them more, and feature them more. In terms of the countryside team, absolutely. I was so surprised to hear that Paul had to put in for a grant to get a digger, to dig a hole, to do water management up there, and they've got to find the money themselves for so many of those little projects. It does seem a very strange way of working. And they're doing things across all departments. You know, they've got children from our Children in Care group up there surveying which birds and butterflies are turning up at 4 o'clock in the morning, and you know, they are working together, but maybe not laying out how they're all working together as much as they could do. I'm not sure, again, where they get the time to do that, but across Neil's and my department, yeah, we could set something up. I think we could look into it. There are areas we've tried to work in together, specifically when it was Adam's portfolio, and we tried all the No More May stuff, but in terms of further work, yeah, which they won't, it caused a load more work. But yeah, if that's okay, we'll set something up and do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Richardson. My last person for questions will be Councillor Marion Fairley. My next question will be Councillor Grogan, please.
Thank you, Mrs. Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Richardson, for your report. And I do like the idea of the big internal events heat map that lands bang smack right in Kirkleatham. It's great news that our ward is actually getting really utilised. It's probably the best ward in the borough, but I'm going to say that. It leads up, obviously, to already that you've mentioned regarding Between the Tides as one a national event, which it's over the moon. The team does really massively well, and obviously, like you mentioned, punches above their weight. And also regarding the visitors numbers at the museum and the Star Wars exhibition for the toys, may the force be with you and all the rest of it. I can't wait for that to come round. But regarding the Festival of Thrift, I'd like to have seen some figures regarding, obviously we've made a significant investment towards that ourselves. There's no mention of that investment within your report. And obviously I spoke to the enforcement team about 2 weeks prior to the event actually happening, because I sort of had an idea what was going to happen from the previous time. Lots of cars parked on West Dyke, Mapleton, Plantation, Fulmerton, them areas there. And obviously I was told because of the free parking, where there wasn't free parking previously, it shouldn't be a problem, but it was. It was a massive problem. So part of that feedback, I hope some of that has come back to there. And I've got to give a shout out to Alison McKenna, who was, I think she was Silver, you know, whoever's on call, one of the CV officers. I spoke to her, and the next day she put some bollards down and things like that, especially on Plantation Road. So I've got to give credit where it was true for her quick actions on that day. Following on from that then, I know it's never happened before, and obviously you've got a lot of events that go on, say for instance on the seafront and in Saltburn and obviously in Kirkleatham. When meetings happen beforehand, it would be nice if members sort of consulted a little bit regarding the events that are prior to happening, just to see if any concerns that might happen, because I knew this was going to happen 2 weeks before. And when I spoke to Doug on the team and the enforcement on the day, he says, there's nothing I can do. I just think moving forward, obviously Cotham, Kirkleatham, Saltburn Council should be at least spoken to, asking for our opinions and our thoughts prior to any big events. Obviously, we had a small event that was privately funded with Wildwood previously, about 2 weeks beforehand, which I believe was quite successful for the first event. But there was AA signs all over. We didn't provide any AA signs anywhere around the borough to let people know to go down the trunk road. It took 30 minutes for people to get from Lazenby Village to Kirkleatham roundabout on that day. I had residents call me, so I can't get down, I can't get home. And people blocked up in drives. So a bit more planning, a little bit more speaking to ward members, especially when large events like that going on. And I spoke to Jordan Jefferson, I know from the team that they do there. I was in Seaton Crew yesterday, they've got Clubland on this weekend, so I said, I'd like to have that over here, we can have that over here. A little bit of a 90s raver back in the day, you know what I mean? So yeah, just that would be just a bit more consultation regarding, especially members when there's a big event on.
Thank you, Councillor Vaughan. Councillor Richardson.
Totally agree. That shouldn't be too difficult to put together, and it should have happened. The team felt that with the free parking, they wouldn't see that issue again. You know, in hindsight, they did, and they need more enforcement on. So, Yeah, absolutely. Consultation before and after them. If you see Jordan again, tell him to bring the beach festival back. I couldn't convince him last time, and well, not yet. He said not yet. Didn't say no. I think that was it. Apart from Kirkleatham, yes, absolutely, it was our showground. It held loads and loads of events. It's brilliant to see a private event come back, and they have confirmed they're coming back again next year. So to see somebody be able to make that into a fenced-off area for a private event was brilliant. Hopefully, other event organisers see that it can be done and bring theirs here. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Richardson. Councillor Cutler.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Richardson, for announcing some great reports. But mine's great events. Mine's a little bit of a disappointment, because one of the greatest events for Redcar and Cleveland happened last week, and nobody seems to know about it. It's not been announced today. The Mayor didn't announce anything. You didn't announce it for the leader. The Cabinet members never announced it. But last week, Redcar and East Cleveland were launched as the inclusive city of recovery. Professor Best came from Glasgow University, and it was hosted by Councillor Pallister, and very nicely, absolutely wonderfully. And Redcar and East Cleveland are now recognised to the start of a recovery city. This is part of, I think, a massive problem that us as councillors seem to forget. We don't deal with it. We don't deal with drugs and alcohol. We push it to one side. We go into all these meetings, we say things, we discuss things, but we don't discuss the root problems. In the previous report that was given by the Cabinet member, we have children in our care. Those children in our care, because mums and dads, grandmas and granddads are all possibly drug related. We should be dealing more with what Professor Best says. He's come up with an absolutely wonderful way to bring everybody involved in our communities to aid recovery. That would then stop the children hopefully going into care. That would prevent these things happening, but it's never ever discussed. It's forgotten about, it's pushed to one side. That's the greatest thing that's happened to Redcar in Cleveland in the time of 7 years I've been a councillor.
Although I sympathise and accept everything that you're saying, it's not within this report, and whilst I understand that whole thing, I just don't know where your question is at the moment.
Sorry, do you want me to sit down?
No, you can.
Could I please ask permission to carry on?
Carry on.
Thank you.
Please get to the question now.
Yeah. The questions, I think it's obvious at the end. And it deals, the main question is, we just forget about the drug and alcohol, the root of the problem. It's that event wasn't attended by any councillors, by Councillor Pallister and Councillor Hunt. And we were thanked for what we did to bring this to Redcar and East Cleveland, because we're all suffering. Our residents are suffering, our communities are suffering, and the thing is, it's not been mentioned. It's massive. Yes. So I'll come. Yeah. Well, I'll come.
Councillor Brown.
Sorry.
I've asked for that question
I'll sit
and
down,
it's
but
coming.
it says everything again. It's pushed away, and I get the whole idea was, why was it forgotten and not announced?
Sorry, yeah, go ahead, Councillor Richardson.
It wasn't announced because it wasn't held by the events team. It was held, I assume, by adults and the Recovery Connections team. It is absolutely not ignored or not mentioned as someone who has been looking into it deeply with our management team, with public health, with children's, looking at the stats for Middlesbrough, seeing the growing stats across the borough. Absolutely, it affects every service in this council, and deserves far more resources than anybody currently has. So it's not forgotten or ignored, it's just not something my team are dealing with at the minute. But separate from my cabinet role, I have been doing some investigations into it, and we all have as a whole, every department, and you're welcome to chat about that later. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Richardson. Can I also remind everybody that when Cabinet gives their reports, it is a question and answer session, not statement, and I'll have no standing up and making these announcements either. Thank you. That comes to the last person with the questions, Councillor Fairley.
Councillor Richardson, for your report. I just want to first of all say how successful the Festival of Thrift was. I've volunteered for the 2 days that it was there and dragged my husband along to do the same, so he was punished for it as well. It was absolutely fantastic. There were so many people who came to support the festival at Kirkleatham, and I think the organisers were actually overwhelmed by the number of visitors who did turn up, because I think since it had left Kirkleatham and went to Billingham, the numbers had dropped so drastically that they were expecting a similar, much lower number of visitors that actually did arrive, and I think they were assuming it would take a while to build up again. In actual fact, I think they were absolutely overwhelmed by the number of visitors who arrived. We were certainly overwhelmed, giving directions to one place and another. It was an amazing day, and beautiful as weather as well, with them bringing it earlier in the year rather than having it in September. So that was fantastic. With regards to actually just talking about what Peter had said about the number of issues with the car parking and everything, I'd actually asked on Facebook. All those opinions have been shared with Lisa and with Sarah Fortune as well, so hopefully that that sort of situation is going to be improved definitely for next year. And also the cones as well, I'd asked as well for those to be put forward, so I think between the two of us again we've got much better. I'm just curious as to know, are we actually guaranteed to get the Festival of Thrift coming through next year? Is it guaranteed to happen? And if so, could you just tell us a little bit more what improvements, or whether there's going to be anything different, or whether it's going to remain the same?
Councillor Richardson.
Yes, it will be back next year. The contract was for 2 years, hopefully, whichever administration's in control. After that, we'll bring it back again. Yes, they will make improvements. It was a new management committee, and I'm sure they've learned a lot from this year. Haven't had a full debrief with them yet, but my daughter was there volunteering both days in, I forgot the words, sewing classes. There's better words for it than that, but there, and it's something like that. And Northern School of Art were there, and my mum was there. I unfortunately wasn't, I was away, but I did hear all about all the fantastic parts. So yes, it's back next year. Yes, Wildwood's back next year, and I hope that somebody stood here this time next year saying there's even more committed to the site, because I hope it's like it was, 20 years ago when there was something on every week. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Richardson. Councillor Barnes, you were on my list, then you came off and back on again. Do you still have your question?
I didn't touch it, honestly. Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Richardson. It may not be considered a suitable inclusion in this report, but Laburnum Library, now known as the Make, Do and Mend Library, has been open for 2 years following a significant council financial investment in their buildings and staff. We were told that this would lead to a saving to the council and lead to an increase in opening hours and community activities. Is it possible to have an analysis of the performance of the Make, Do and Mend Library since its inception to show the purported improvements in library services?
Thank you, Councillor Barnes. Councillor Richardson.
It has improved in community value. I don't know what purported improvements in library services you'd want to see, but I think hearing how it's interacted with the school, how the kids were already going down there and having reading sessions, with the clubs they've got going on, I've only heard good things about it. Can I ask the organiser for a report of what they've got going on? Absolutely, yeah. But you could pop in, it's in your ward, and have a chat to them and see what's going on, because all I've heard is positive feedback about how much more it's offering than just book lending. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Richard. There is no supplementary on a question and answer session. Moving on. I'll bring him in at the end of the next report. So we'll move to agenda item 10 to consider reports, and we'll move to the monitoring officer for that report.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. It's the usual technical report in terms of the proportionality calculations and allocation of seats. It should have been circulated, so I'm not aware of any issues in terms of the calculations. It just requires a mover and a seconder and it agreeing, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. Councillor Massey, is there any issues with the report? Show of hands for those that accept. Passed. Thank you. Councillor Kerr, you want to speak? You turn your mic on.
Yeah, it's to sort out the membership of the Climate Committee, so I thought we would come on to that.
There's the proportionality themselves, and then there's the appointment of members later on.
Right, okay.
The appointment of members is item 12.
All right, okay. Thank you.
Councillor Taylor, you're up next. Thank you.
Brown and Madam Mayor. Just basically just to say a quick announcement as I am Forces champion. You might have seen it in the papers last week, but Redcar and Cleveland Council have now been awarded the Gold Award for the service that we've created for the Armed Forces Champion for Redcar and Cleveland. So it's absolutely an amazing award to be able to get that through to the dedication of our two Armed Forces liaison officers who have worked incredibly hard over the last 12 months, bringing the foundations of what we're doing together internally within the council and the outreach towards the local charities, etc. So much so, they've been that successful, this council have now implemented another two Armed Forces Champion. To get this award really has cost this council no more than a buffet lunch. And it's credit to Councillor Clark, who set their foundations up originally for the Armed Forces Champion. So thank you for that as well. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor, and I echo everything that you've said. Moving on to agenda item 11, there has been no motions submitted, so we move on to agenda item 12 to appoint members. Councillor Kerr, you wanted to speak on that one?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillor Kay is going to remove Councillor Smith, so he needs to speak first, really, I think.
On item 2, we would propose Councillor Davies to join the Children and Families Scrutiny and Improvement Committee. We've got too many people apparently Yes, we've got to remove a name from the Climate Scrutiny and Improvement Committee. So I will remove, it gives me great pleasure to say this, I wish he was here, Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Councillor Kerr. Councillor Kerr.
Madam Mayor. And we will, pardon? And we will propose Councillor Smith as a member of the Climate Committee. We are gifting our seat to Councillor to the Independents. Okay? Yep. Yes, it is.
Is that agreed?
Is that agreed? Oh, please.
Agreed? Agreed. We move on to agenda item 13, which is the questions. I'll take them as read and the Cabinet member will answer the questions. You may ask your supplementary. So question 1 is from Councillor Taylor to Councillor Bendelow. Councillor Bendelow to answer the question.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Following the retirement of the previous dog and pest officer, we have recruited to the existing post. The officer has responsibility for providing pest control on council assets as well as parks, cemeteries and open spaces. We do not offer services for private residents. However, advice is available on the council website as we do offer advice to residents. Throughout the year, we have met with key partners on issues including Northumbrian Water, Beyond Housing, to understand existing issues with infrastructure and assets and potential collective resources that can be exercised. The new officer is liaising with these key partners and other landowners where common issues are identified, as well as our own environmental protection team. The new officer has significant experience and will be looking at best practice to ensure the correct approach and treatments are applied where required. This officer also has responsibility for dealing with stray dogs across the borough, including arranging for kennel. We will make contact with officers at Middlesbrough to establish how their service is operating, the demand for the service and the associated costs, but members will appreciate this council's current financial position is very difficult.
Councillor Taylor, do you have a supplementary?
Yeah, thank you for that update, Councillor Bendelow. It was just obviously when we brought it up 12 months ago, there was meant to be, I know it was before your time as Cabinet member anyway, but there was meant to be some task force set up, or like a task force group, which did involve Northumbrian Water, like you mentioned. But our thoughts at the time was there was going to be a task force similar to what Middlesbrough Council have now done with about 5 or 6 pest controls. We appreciate budget's tight, but with the massive rise in vermin on the streets, I'd appreciate if we could liaise with the council and find out if it is possible for this council to adapt. Thank you.
Councillor Bendelow.
Right, yeah, thank you for the question. One of the first things I did when I became Cabinet member is ask the question for the pest control. And I was told that if we got one, for example, what happens if we get swamped? Now I understand that Middlesbrough, when they brought theirs and they had one, and in the first week they got 250 inquiries. So now they've upped it to 4. Now if you look at the cost of that, you're talking well over £100,000 with no budget towards it. So listen, I think everybody in this room agrees with it, but it's finding the resources to be able to do it, and that's something we need to look at moving forward. Thank you.
Question 2 is from Councillor Taylor to Councillor Bendelow. Councillor Bendelow to answer, please.
The booking system at Dunsdale Household Waste Recycling Centre
was introduced initially to resolve a highway safety issue with cars queuing at the site at peak times, tailing back onto the main road. However, the benefit of operating a booking system is that we can match the opening hours of the site to demand for the service. On average, only 65% of the available slots are actually being used, whereas a much higher percentage are being booked by residents and they're not being used. We would therefore request that residents only book the slots they need, increasing the availability of the site for other people. The council has recently carried out a number of improvements to the site which will enable residents to dispose of their waste much quicker and increase the number of visitors the site can accommodate each day. We also have plans to upgrade the current IT system which will enable greater control over the way bookings are made. In relation to the question of fly tipping, I agree it's totally unacceptable. It's a blight on local communities and it's of course illegal. People fly tip for a number of reasons, either to avoid commercial waste disposal costs, to avoid bulky waste charges and to present additional household waste, or just because of lack of social responsibility. The council provides a range of waste collection and disposal services that can be assessed by residents to ensure we maximise the amount of waste that is recycled, ensure it's processed correctly and minimises cost. The Community Safety Partnership initiated the community clean-up process to enable councils to nominate areas for community clean-up. The clean-up includes the provision of skips, supported by Beyond Housing, the Fire Brigade, which encourages and enables residents to dispose of waste responsibly. The location of the community clean-up do have to be limited, and we rely on partners to come up together to manage these events with existing resources. There are currently at least 4 council-nominated community clean-ups each year, but we've also supported additional clean-ups for areas nominated by partners. The nomination of each location does have to be supported by multi-agency data to ensure that the limited resources are being allocated to the areas most in need of intervention. These events have proved the most effective way of managing limited resources to deal with positively promote responsibility and disposal of waste. In addition, both the council and Beyond Housing collect fly tipping on a daily basis, as often as a result of patrolling high volume areas as well as responding to complaints.
Thank you, Councillor Benslow. Do you have a supplementary, Councillor Taylor?
Thank you for that. Thank you for that. Yeah, again, thanks for the update. Part of the question I was is about covert cameras, especially in, well, many wards, but speaking about my wards, a lot of the same fly tipping's going on in the same location. Could we explore the avenue of covert cameras to try and catch these fly tippers? We have had a good community clean-up event in Bankfields, run by the Community Safety along with Beyond Housing and the council. That went down really well. I think one of the flaws, and I can understand the community clean-up, is what happens is dedicated streets and then residents get a leaflet the day of 2 days prior, which the reason for that is just to let them know what's going on. Now, one of the things I wanted to do but couldn't is let residents know well in advance. Therefore, if someone's intending to do a fly tip, if they're intending to do a fly tip, then they might keep that and then use it as a community event. So that's maybe something you could look at going forward. And obviously, since I put the question in, the council announced that they're looking at opening Warrenby Tip anyway, so that'll obviously alleviate some pressure. So thanks for that, Alec.
Councillor Bendelaw.
Thank you. Yeah, just regarding the community clean-ups, we do it normally on the day, and that's purely so we don't get people from outside the area coming tipping, because we collect a significant amount of waste, and that's why it's very difficult, because we try and do it on the day so people don't have a chance from outside the area to do it, only the people in that area to do that, and they've proved well like they did in your area. What I would like to see is more of them doing, to be honest with you, and that's something that we need to look at moving forward. Can we do some more in wards? At the moment we only do 4, you know, and no disrespect to like tenants of Beyond Housing and so on like that, but some of the people in the private estates don't have the opportunity because Beyond Housing manage it with us, and it's limited to 150 houses, which makes it very tight. So it's something we need to look at. You know, I mean, it's something I'm keen to look at, and I know the leader's keen to look at that as well, to see what we can do to try and make things better for everybody around the borough. So that's something we're looking at. All right. I think have I answered everything? What was the other one? Oh yeah, COVID camera. We have got COVID cameras. They go to the safety partnership, and then they get allocated to where they need to go. So we have got them, and we have them around the borough. If you just do members inquiries, then they'll go. Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Question 3 is from Councillor Barnes to be answered by the leader, Councillor Brown.
Ooh. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm quite excited by the Conservative announcement today that the supporter will start a bin tagging policy throughout the council. I shall note that down. But Councillor Barnes, last week I spoke with the MP's office and attorney and her staff who've already been doing some really diligent work, working with the current post office, so that Redcar doesn't lose its much needed post office. It's widely used. I know Anna's speaking with the banking hub, and there's a which is planned for the High Street, and a number of other businesses that have come forward to me expressing their interest, and we're having conversations as the MP's office as well with the existing staff, so we don't lose any of the skill set that we already have. So you can be rest assured it's all in hand, not underhand, sorry. Sorry, I was still thinking about the bin tagging policy, sorry. But at the end of the day, it's the post office that own and run it, so it's whether or not they agree with the new proposals. Okay?
Thank you, Councillor Brown. Councillor Barnes, do you have a supplementary?
Yes, thank you. The post office allocates their branches via a franchise system, which follows the following sequence. First of all, a register of interest, then checks on credit checks, financial and security checks, background checks. And then finally, the proposers have to submit a business plan with financial projections and a retail survey. Are we taking steps to ensure that those businesses who may have put themselves forward as replacement premises will be able to meet these franchise requirements?
Thank you, Councillor Barnes. Councillor Brown.
I'll be working with the, we are working with the MP's office and the business team to ensure that anybody that does express of interest gets supported, so it can happen as quickly as possible.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. Question 4 is also from Councillor Barnes to Councillor Bendelow. Councillor Bendelow, can you answer, please?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The Enforcement of Public Space Protection Order, PSPO, restricting dogs being off the lead in our formal parks, including Zetland Park, is carried out by the Council's Community Enforcement Team. This small team is also responsible for the enforcement of parking and other environment offences, including fly tipping, as well as our other PSPO for gating schemes, vehicle nuisance and antisocial behaviour. Whilst the team will visit the parks as frequently as possible on their patrols, we are not able to provide a dedicated resource to the park. However, if councillors or residents are concerned, they should report the incident and occurrence to the council, and the community enforcement team will carry out increased patrols at different times of the day to both educate and enforce the restrictions. Any instance of dog attack on a person should be reported to the police.
Thank you, Councillor Bendelow. Councillor Barnes, do you have a supplementary?
Yes, please. Is there any scope for recruiting additional enforcement officers during the summer months on a temporary basis when such antisocial behaviour is likely to take place and increase? These additional enforcement officers could also be used for issues such as littering, dog fouling and illegal parking.
Thank you, Councillor Barnes. Councillor Bendelow.
It's something we're looking at overall. The enforcement team, there's quite a lot of work that needs to be done, and as you've said there, we could do a lot of extra work with the enforcement officers. It's something the team are looking at to see if we've got the resources. Again, unfortunately, everything's resource driven, but it's something we are looking at. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bendelow. Question 5 is from Councillor Nightingale to Councillor Quartermain. With Councillor Quartermain not here, is the leader responding?
Permits issued to public utility companies undertaking works on council-owned highways and other relevant council-controlled land are subject to nationally prescribed permit fees by the DFT. Permits are generally issued for a specific project or phase of works to cover an agreed duration. There's no scope for the council to make additional charges, as the permit fees are set within the statutory framework. The council will continue to work with the utility companies through the permit scheme to minimise disruption to residents by coordinating works, challenging unnecessary occupation of the highway, and ensuring companies meet their obligations for communication and traffic management.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. Councillor Nightingale, as Councillor Quatermain isn't here to ask a supplementary, would you like it in writing? The response, unless Councillor Brown, Councillor Brown can respond.
Can I ask a supplementary then? Come on, thank you. Yeah. Yeah, you say that there's no scope, but perhaps there should be. When I first saw these figures that I was sent, the highest figure was £150, and I thought at first it was a typo, and that these were out of sync, and there should have been an extra 2 zeros included. These are multi-million-pound companies. We're not charging them very much for the disruptions that they cause, and I think they should do. So I think it is important that you, as leader of the council, maybe could I urge you and ask you to lobby your government to do something about it, because quite clearly what is happening is that the utilities are causing social costs, that is costs to third parties who are not involved. One of the third parties is the council, because there is disruption to traffic flows, there's devastation to the roads and footpaths when they do their resurfacing, and there is the resulting mess that they leave when they've finished. Residents in our area have been reporting that they have difficulty getting out and in and out of their drives. A good example was Highbank Road in Ormsby. There is difficulty for many people with wheelchairs for using the pavements, and there was also a rumour that the water quality was deteriorating. It may well have been that there was in the area, one of the areas where the water board did say that there would be some brown water. So I think it would be reassuring to residents to see that some compensation for the third-party costs that are imposed on individuals and on the council are actually recompensed. And will you urge your members of parliament and your government, your new government, to do something about this, to ensure that these multinational companies, multi-million-pound companies, are actually doing something that will help the residents of this borough, not only in terms of ensuring the disruption is less, but also in terms of providing us with extra cash.
Thank you. Councillor Brown.
With the council's monitoring officer to see if that's even legal for me to suggest and lobby the MPs in terms of the framework, which is sometimes set in stone. I don't know.
Moving on to question 6 is from Councillor Nightingale to Councillor Bendelow. Councillor Bendelow to answer.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The Streets Work team is carrying out regular inspections of both the temporary compound and the associated works at East Bank Road. Where issues have been identified, the water company has been required to make improvements and has been issued with financial penalties for non-compliance. Inspections will continue throughout the project, and a final inspection will be undertaken upon completion. To ensure the site is reinstated to the appropriate standard, any defects and inadequacies identified will be pursued with the utility company in accordance with the relevant legislation and permit conditions. If you want me to tell you how much it's been fined, I'll do it now if you want. Already, yeah? The £250 to get a scheme permit fee. FPN breach of permit conditions £240. Permit variation £35 each time a modification or extension is agreed, £35 is charged. inspections times 2, 240, and overrun of times 3 days, 750. Extension has now been granted. Thank you.
Do you have a supplementary, Councillor Nightingale?
I think the response you've given is really reassuring. It is important that the property is actually protected. It's a children's play area. Incidentally, the official question spells East Bank Road wrong, so we'll not worry about that. I think it's important that when these sort of projects actually take place, that perhaps somewhere other than a children's play area is used for the facilities that the public utilities need. And I think I would like an assurance, and this is the question, that this sort of site will not be used in future.
Thank you, Councillor Nightingale. Councillor Bendelaw.
I'd have to take that away and see where we are with that, because I don't think I can answer that question, to be fair to you. I think it all depends on where the location is, what's available at the time. So I need to take that away, and I'll come back with an answer if that's all right. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bendelaw. Last question is from Councillor Joy to Councillor Brown. Councillor Brown to answer.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I missed the announcements because I was running late, but I did want to ask members if maybe they could not. Members maybe or maybe not aware that one of our grassroots sports clubs, Southbank Cricket Club, is in national news and headlines. I noticed one councillor did sort of post a comment that I thought, and a council officer, by the way, that I thought was in bad taste, and whilst an actions of a grassroots amateur sportsman might be chitty-chatty news for Piers Morgan, I think that as elected councillors we should be supporting our grassroots clubs, and I'd ask for restraint across the chambers in terms of having to go to Southbank Cricket Club. It's not their fault if one of their players has been cheating. And to answer to Gemma, yes.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. Do you have a supplementary, Councillor Joy?
I do, but I thought you were going to ask me something about cricket, so I was a bit discombobulated then. Thank you. I almost wish that I could have read out the question, because I think when I looked at it again, it looked a bit... So the spirit of the question is more about, are you okay, Hun, rather than what are you doing about this? It came because Councillor Grosvenor and I were at a meeting where we hadn't realised that part of the best value notice has a massive impact on our local authority funding, and any additional funding is impacted. So I guess to that point, my further question is, we were told that at that meeting, the best value notice is about 70% complete with an additional 30% to go. I think there's some questions around what that actually is. So what we were told was that it was very much, they were almost unsure of what the parameters were themselves, and had to almost put forward the parameters. So it was, I would say diplomatically, it was a bit opaque, the process. So I would like to know what you can do to advance, and the reason for that is not to stir up the pot politically, it's to unlock funding for us, our local authority, not just us, Middlesbrough, Darlington, what's the other one, Hartlepool and Stockton. Thanks.
You're right in the spirit of your question, and it's only right that Borough Council should be asking questions if they believe that we've missed out on any funding or future opportunities. I will report, though, that we haven't missed out on any significant funding in Redcar and Cleveland 2 days. Okay, can I just ask what meeting this was, where they're giving you progress on the best value notice? So was it assumption making by whoever was talking in the meeting about how far they were? All right, okay. Okay.
Can we just say is questions, you only get one supplementary?
I just wanted a bit of context so I could answer the supplementary question, Madam Mayor, but thank you. I don't know if you've had a chance to read the Cabinet papers going to Cabinet tomorrow? All right, okay. It makes reference to the Arlington Close independent review that we've had over the loan repayments to both the STDC and to the airport. That review states that it does believe that the £422 million owed is repayable, and that's a major keystone and get the best value notice lifted. I thought there were a lot more along than having 30% left. As you noticed, some of the best value notices a couple of months ago, you may or may not notice that other public sector organisations had actually been lifted or extended, and we were the glaring miss from that. And I was told at the last informal update from the TVC officers that we should have some information on terms of the end or the extension of the best value by early September.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. That is all the questions asked and answered. And that is the end of today's meeting. Can I thank you all?